Hello, I'm Bruce Dumont. Welcome to Political Forum. That's your chance to learn more about elected officials and civically engaged individuals in the Chicagoland area. Nice to have you with us. Our guest is Jesse White. He is the Secretary of State of the great state of Illinois, and no one in the history of this state has ever received more votes than you. What's your secret?
Well, I believe, I'm from a military person, so I believe that when you take on a job, you take on a responsibility that goes with it. I also believe that you should be at your duty station, discharge your duties every day on time, and making sure that you provide those meaningful services to the people of the state of Illinois that they richly need and deserve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, most people, when they think of your name or see your name, it's something related to drivers or driver's licenses. Let me ask you. You've been an elected official for a long time. They usually are driven around the state. When was the last time you got behind a wheel?
I drive on a regular basis. You know, I'm the coach and founder of the Jesse White Tumblers team.
Right.
And I transport my unit. There are 8 units that make up the Jesse White Tumblers team, 300 young people. And we do about 1,500 shows a year. And we turn down about 300 requests. Can I put them into our schedule? So yes, I have every week, probably 3 and 4 times, I'm behind the wheel of a van.
Okay. And I assume your license is up to date.
Up to date. If you'd like, I'd show it.
No. One thing that people don't know, because when they look at you, I mean, you're an athlete. You've been an athlete for all your life, involved in athletics, and yet you're 84 years old. Just turned 84. You look remarkable, but a lot of people who are 84 aren't as in shape as you are. What is the situation in Illinois over a certain age? What do you have to do to retain your driver's license?
Well, you can retain your driver's license until you get to a point where the doctor says that you are not fit to drive an automobile. And see, what has happened is I have been the safety net for a lot of families. There are times when the father, or better yet the son, don't want the father to drive any longer.
Right.
So he'll take the father to the hospital, and the doctor will make the determination as to whether the person is fit or not. If the doctor says you are fit, then of course they'll come to the Secretary of State's office and they'll get behind the wheel of an automobile, and they must pass the test. If they don't pass the test, then they will not get their driver's license. And my office has served as a safety net, the light in the tunnel for a lot of families.
Sure.
Because there are times when the son or the daughter don't want the loved one to drive any longer, so they leave it up to the Secretary of State's office, and if they're not fit, we will not.
But it's only for a year? Do they have to be tested every year?
After
a certain age?
After 86, I think it is.
Okay. All right. And of all the things that you've been involved, you've been Secretary of State since 1999. You were the Recorder of Deeds of Cook County prior to that. You spent almost 20 years in the Illinois General Assembly. And yet, on an international basis, you're known as the man behind the Jesse White Tumblers. Of all the political things you've done, of all the non-political things you've done, what's the thing you're most proud of?
I think I'm most proud of probably the Jesse White Tumblers team, and the fact that in my office we were able to come up with the graduated driver's license program, which will allow teen drivers to get that license at age 16, and we teach them how to navigate on our roads in a respectful manner. And as it has turned out, well, let me go back. When I became the Secretary of State in Tazewell County, which is outside of Peoria, Illinois, 16, 15-year-olds had lost their lives every month. And I decided to formulate a committee of experts in the field of driving and transportation. And we conducted some hearings across the state of Illinois. And as a result of our hearings, we came up with a program that's called the Graduated Driver's License Program, where we require parents to spend 50 hours behind the wheel with their child. 10 of those hours would be done at night, because we realize that nighttime driving creates a problem for the teen driver. And then, of course, we had the 9-month period of time where the youngster would have to drive during the fall, winter, and spring months, because we give them an opportunity to get a feel of what it feels like to drive under those conditions. And based on all that I've said, there's been a 51% reduction in the loss of lives at the hands of teen drivers because of this program.
Yeah. Where did the idea for the Jesse White Tumblers come from? How long ago was that?
1959.
Wow.
I played 8 years professional baseball with the club organization. I also served in the military for 10 years. I was a paratrooper, used to jump out of perfect good airplanes.
101st Airborne.
And with General William Westmoreland, and I taught school for 33 years. And I've been the coach and founder of the Jesse White Tumblers team for 59 years, and then 16 years as a lawmaker, 6 as a kind of recorded these, 19 years as a Secretary of State, and yet I'm not 150 years of age. But out of professional baseball with the club organization during the off season, I taught school during the day, worked for the practitioner. I was asked to put on the gym show, and that was the beginning of the Jesse White Tumblers team. I was a gymnast as a kid, taught gymnastics in college, taught for the Board of Education practitioner, YMCA, and that was the real effort that I put forth to try to help young people to grow tall and straight and stay out of harm's way. And after the first show, which was done at the Rockwell Garden Fieldhouse, which is no longer there, at Western Adams, parents asked me, would you continue to work with the young people? I said, well, I was asked to put on a gym show, and it was highly successful, so we're going to move forward. And they said, you're not going to work with the kids. They like coming to the park. They like to work with you. They like your style. They want to be like you, act like you, and they just admire and respect you. So are you saying that you're not going to continue to work with them? And I said, well, let me try one more year. And let me try one more year. And now we're talking about 59 years.
Wow. You mentioned that the parents at that point, and this goes back quite a ways, they said that their children looked up to you. You were
Yes.
a role model for them, and you have been for hundreds of thousands, perhaps, people growing up in the state of Illinois. The athlete of today is different than the athlete of 40 or 50 years ago. Do you think the athletes of today understand the important role they play in society by being a role model, and have a lot of times they don't seem to live up and be a very good role model? Would you agree with that?
I agree wholeheartedly with you, because I know that when I played baseball, I played 8 years in the club organization, primarily AA and AAA. It's a heartbeat away from the majors. After the ball game was over, there would be thousands of young people out waiting outside the ballpark, waiting to get an autograph or take a picture. Some of the ball players would go over the back fence. They would not spend any time with their fans. And they said, well, Jesse White does it all the time, so let him take care of it. So I would stand out in front of the ballpark, and I would sign my name, and I would do all I can to set a good example for the ball players that they see on a regular basis that they admired. And so I think that if you're going to be in the eye of these young people, you should set a good example for them.
In the city of Chicago for the last several years, we have been focused on with a national spotlight because of the violence that takes place in this city. You've been an elected official for a long time, a ward committeeman, very active in the Democratic Party, and even though the Secretary of State has no direct responsibility for the carnage that exists on the streets of Chicago, has this mayor or any mayor ever asked you, Jesse, have you got some ideas as to what we as a city should be doing differently to improve the situation?
No, not really.
That's too bad.
I was asked, well, some of my friends said that they want to build a building in my honor. And I said, what were we talking about? They said, well, probably on the west side. And as it turned out, they decided that it would be on the north side, about 5 blocks from my house. It's called the Jesse White Community Center and Fieldhouse. And thanks to Rahm Emanuel, we were able to come up with, Mayor Daley helped us get the property. Rahm Emanuel helped us to get some money from the TIP fund, about $10 million, to complete the project. It's the Jesse White Community Center and Fieldhouse. It's at 412 West Chicago Avenue. It serves as a safety net, the light in the tunnel, the safety net for a lot of young people. So kids could come and be tutored, come and be taught basketball, taught gymnastics.
An oasis of some kind?
It's a safety net for a lot of young people. And I think that we have more facilities such as that, we can save a lot of our young people. And then once our young people have become better educated, better informed, it's a win-win situation for all of us. And then, of course, we need to make sure that we spend a little time helping individuals become gainfully employed, because when it goes back to the old adage, and idle minds that was workshop. When young people don't have anything to do with themselves, then terrible things tend to happen.
But do you have any idea, any suggestion on what the city could be doing now? It's great that they're, obviously, if there was a Jesse White building or some building that provided an oasis and a safety place for children to go, young people to go in on every block or every 10 blocks in Chicago, that would be a place to help. But is there anything else that could get through to either the parents or the young people, who seem to have a very lack of respect for both authority and even for the human life?
Sure. I've had over 18,000 young people to come through my program. At last count, to my knowledge, about 120 have gotten themselves in trouble with the law. It's been an effort to combat juvenile delinquency. With the Jesse White Tumblers team, there's no drinking, smoking, swearing, dropping out of school, or disliking anyone because of race, creed, or color. That is the other kind that cannot play that one. Then they have to be leafless, smokeless, and pipeless. The only time they can practice pharmacy is after they've earned a white coat. That means no drugs. And then, of course, we require that they maintain at least a C average in school. They must turn the report card into us every marking period. And then we have, out of 300 young people on the team, 51 are in college, and we give each one between $3,000 to $8,000 toward their education. Every year we have a trunk party. We have about 600 young people. We give each one about pretty close to $800 worth of school supplies so they can go off to college. And then, of course, we take young people on college tours so they get a chance to see the various institutions of learning that are scattered around this wonderful country of ours. And then, of course, as a part of the trunk party, we give young people high-end new clothes, new shoes. And we also give them encouragement to move forward in their life so they can become a productive force in society.
And where does the funding come from?
We raise the funds. It comes through our foundation, the Jesse White Foundation, and then we also solicit. The Rotary Club International has been really strong with us. Then the list goes on and on as to our supporters. But I do believe that when parents are involved with the education of the young people, we're going to get a better product. When parents avoid absentee, then of course parents are thought as to what will happen to society.
One other issue that obviously is receiving a great deal of publicity now is the Jason Van Dyke trial. It is to go to the jury. There could be a verdict literally any time, perhaps even before this broadcast plays. Again, the tension that exists between some elements in the black communities of Chicago and the police department. Any advice there on what young people should do when approached by the police, or any tips that how police should react when they approach young African Americans?
Well, one of the things that I don't like, and that is when you're confronted by a police officer and you run. Why are you running? You should not run. You should stand there and answer the questions that are put forth by the police officer. I also believe that there should be some respect for our law enforcement officers. They may ask you to raise your hands, or put your hands on the car, or show your driver's license, or show your ID, or show some form of identification. I don't think that there should be a heated discussion because of what is being asked of you. Sometimes a police officer may step out of bounds, but I'd rather have the policeman on my side than to be confronted by someone who may not have any respect for the law.
Is that primarily a responsibility of parents, or do you think the broader community, whether it is the religious community, whether it is the athletic community, again, well-known athletes, there's an engagement now of well-known athletes who take a knee in a football game because the reason they are doing it was because they believe there's been too much police brutality in America. Is there some role for them to play in communicating to young people if the police officer tells you to stop, you should stop. Would that be a more meaningful protest than just taking a knee once a week?
That's a good approach to obeying the law, and I believe in obeying the law. And I will never take a knee. I served in the military not once, not twice, but 3 times. And I taught school for 33 years, and every morning we put our hand over our heart and we say the pledge and we sing the national anthem. So I bleed red, white, and blue. But I do believe that young people need to understand the laws that have been put forth by this country, and they must obey them, abide by them. They do less than that, then of course some terrible things could happen. I just want parents, police, the teachers, the ministers to all zero in on helping our young people to grow tall and straight.
A couple of years ago, you announced that you were not going to seek re-election. And then you changed your mind. Who or what changed your mind?
Well, there's an organization called MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and a lot of organizations scattered throughout this wonderful state of ours and even the people who come to the Secretary of State's office like the services that we provide to them. And we do it in a highly professional manner, and we do it in a timely way, which means that when you come to the Secretary of State's office, you no longer have to bring your duffel bag, sleeping bag, or your lunch pail. We try to get you in and out in a timely manner. They've enjoyed that kind of service, and they said, please reconsider one more time. And I said, yes, this I will reconsider, and run one more time, and that's going to be it. And so, Bruce, I go on record with you of saying, this is the last time. I have 4 years to go. My opponent said that I would serve 1 year and then I would step down and Mike Madigan would make the appointment as to who my successor would be. Well, that's left up to the governor of the state of Illinois. And I answered him by also saying that I should jump out of perfect airplanes. Did 35 jumps. You never jump out of an airplane and stop halfway. It's all the way, and that's what I plan to do. Stay in this position when I'm re-elected for the next 4 years.
Now, some political reporters, a rumor within the political reporting teams in Chicago, is that J.B. Pritzker urged you, asked you, maybe even begged you to come back in the race because he felt that with you on the ticket, there would be an increase in African American voters that would help him. And that's part of the reason why you decided to come back and help J.B. Pritzker get elected.
Never had that discussion with him. But I've known J.B. Pritzker for over 35 years, and he and I have been the best of friends. And of course, when he indicated that he was going to run for governor of the state of Illinois, I said, thank God we have someone who's not only going to take on a job, but will take on the responsibility of serving the people of the state of Illinois in a manner which they need and deserve. And so, yes, I'm...
And he can fund it.
Oh, yes. I'm a strong supporter of J.B. Pritzker. Then you have a young lady by the name of Juliana Stratton. Juliana Stratton is a highly talented young lady, and she'll go down in history of being the best lieutenant governor the state of Illinois has ever had. And I think J.B. Pritzker will go down in history of being the best governor we've ever had.
Okay. During the campaign early on, the Rauner campaign has been behind campaign commercials, playing tapes of J.B. Pritzker in conversation with Rod Blagojevich. At one point, they were talking about who a replacement in the Senate would be, and they were talking about African Americans, and they were going over a list. And J.B. Pritzker wasn't necessarily always effusive in his praise of other names that were being mentioned. And he described you that you would be a safe pick, that you'd be an acceptable African American. How did that make you feel? Were you proud of that, or was that a backhanded
I was proud of that,
Okay.
having known J.B. Pritzker for over 35 years. I know where his heart is. I know where his thought process was at the time. And so he called me and he said, if you felt as though I offended you, I wanted to apologize to you. I said, JB, I said, I've known you for a long period of time. I said, we've been the best of friends. I know where your thought is, what thought process is. I know where your heart is. I know where you are. I said, hey, if you want me to say I accept your apology, well done. This is a done deal. I said, let's go forward.
But other politicians who you've known already everybody for a long time in this state. Other politicians didn't want to let him off the hook. I think there's some who don't even want to let him off the hook now. So what would you say to them? What would you say to them that they were, if you weren't insulted, perhaps they were insulted and the African American community should be insulted?
In the case of Emo Jones, it was said that he was crass.
Right.
And so I saw Emo shortly thereafter, and Emo was with Kennedy. He was supporting Kennedy,
Yes.
and I was supporting J.B. Pritzker.
Right.
And he said, I wasn't offended by what he said about me. I was offended by what he said about you. I said, he said that you were crass, and then all he said was I was acceptable. And the most acceptable person. And so we had that discussion, and we shook hands, and it was a done deal. So Email and I have been friends a long time. And so he was mostly concerned about, but in the case of Jesse Jackson Jr., I think it was said that he would be a nightmare. Well, that was the discussion between Blagojevich and Pritzker. That was their assessment, but what he said about me, I was not offended at all by it.
One other thing that has been in the news lately is with the Brett Kavanaugh hearings to the Supreme Court, and also in the context of the conviction of Bill Cosby. There have been charges made about conduct that was made years ago, back in high school for Brett Kavanaugh, as an adult with Bill Cosby. What's your reaction? Should there be a statute of limitation against anybody who is charged with a crime that's more than 20, 30, or 40 years old?
Well, I don't think there should be one. If you committed a crime, and there's a price you must pay, and pay you must. So no.
And your reaction to the sentence of Bill Cosby?
Well, I've known Bill Cosby, and have not enjoyed a great relationship with him.
Right.
And so justice prevailed.
Justice prevailed. One other thing that's very unique, as we mentioned, we're talking to Jesse White. He's the Secretary of State. He's been Secretary of State longer than anyone in history. He's gotten more votes than anyone ever running for office in the state of Illinois, in addition to being a Secretary of State, or the Secretary of State, since 1999. That's the last century. He was also Recorder of Deeds, and again, prior to that, for 18 years, he was a member of the Illinois General Assembly, and also a ward committeeman for many, many years. And you got your political spurs early because you worked with George Dunn, and a lot of young people who are watching tonight may not know the name of George Dunn. For many years, he was the head of the Cook County Democratic Party, and he was also the chairman of the Cook County Board, also someone that came from the legislature way back in his career. Tell us about George Dunn and that relationship, because your relationship with him was about as rock solid as any relationship that I can recall during that period of local politics.
He's a wonderful human being, and he was the first and only, well, I would say not the only, but the first white person to support Harold Washington for mayor of the city of Chicago. And then I used to meet with him every Monday night. We used to eat at Eli's on Chicago Avenue. So he asked me to seriously consider running for state representative. I asked him, I told him that I enjoyed knocking on doors, circulating petitions, supporting the candidates supported by the Democratic, endorsed and supported by the Democratic Party. And he said, well, Robert Thompson, our state representative, is retiring to Cassopolis, Michigan, and we'd like to know if you would replace him. And I said, well, give me a chance to think about it. I used to go skiing every weekend up at Schuster Mountain in Massillona, Michigan. I used to go down this hill for about 12 years. with all the moguls, and I had trouble negotiating it. And finally, this particular day, I went down 12 times without falling. I said, well, if I can handle this hill, I can certainly handle the political arena. So I came back to Chicago, and I called President Dunn. I indicated to him that he had his candidate for state representative. And I asked him, what did the district consist of? He said Lincoln Park to Paul River, North Streeterville, the Gold Coast area, Magnificent Mile, and Cabrini Green. And I said, what is the numerical numbers? He says, well, it's 83% white, 12% black, 5% others. I said, well, that's like 2 strikes against me and a curveball coming up. He said, no, you'll do quite well. Well, as it turned out, I served for 16 years in the Illinois General Assembly representing that district, thanks to the leadership and support from President George Dunn.
Now, again, for those that have been around a long time, one of the legendary stories that was attributed to George Dunn in an effort to get out the vote in the projects, which they were called then, Cabrini Green, in the area that you referenced, was that on election day or the day after election day, a turkey would show up at the home of everyone who lived in public housing. Is there any truth to that?
I don't remember that.
No turkeys?
No, but no.
You always had a great turnout.
He had his way of being at his duty station, discharging his duties, because whenever an individual wanted to talk with him, every Monday night at 9:45 North State, you'd go up those stairs, about 70 flights of stairs,
Yeah.
and you would meet with him and tell him what your problems were, and he would address them. And he was always available by way of phone, and he was always available every Monday night at the 42nd Ward Democratic Headquarters.
Yep, and I can attest to that because that office was in the same building where the Museum of Broadcast Communications housed itself for several times, and every Monday, usually I would see George Dunn arriving for that. So he was a unique character. One last question. In 2016, the Russians tried to break into Secretary of State's records, including in Illinois. There was a report they were successful in Illinois. What is the Department of Homeland Security telling you now about what needs to be done to protect the vote this November?
We are in pretty good shape with regard to the Russians breaking into our system. We have a firewall that is present, and we don't believe that they will be successful in their attempt to break into our system.
Okay. By the way, we should mention, if you would like to know more about Jesse White and also the role of the Illinois Secretary of State, here is the phone number and the website. Cyber Illinois is, they're one of the leaders in the country insofar as cyber communication is concerned, and I think that most people probably give up or get their information Cyber Illinois. I know that I do, and also just want to say that it's great to be back with you and hosting this broadcast again. Our guest has been Jesse White. He is the Secretary of State. He is running for re-election. He is also the founder of the Jesse White Tumblers, and as my granddaughter is a Tumbler, and she's a big fan of yours. So you've inspired a lot of people, not just those living in the inner city of Chicago. I'm Bruce Dumont. You've been watching Political Forum, and you can watch this and other Political Forum programs by visiting the website shown on the screen below, and it is cantv.org/political forum. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'm Bruce Dumont. Good night.